Well, hello, what's up? Welcome back to my channel. Oh, Graham says hi over here too. Today is my March wrap up and I read a decent amount of books in March. I am very, very proud of myself because I was still working full time. I was still doing all the things, book club things. I hosted a readathon. I do the podcast. I mean, gosh, and I keep this house clean. So let me show you guys my page that I love so much. Oh my gosh, it is so beautiful. Just forget about this one because that's what I'm currently reading. So I have not read that yet. But these are all the books that I've read so far in 2021 and I'm really, really loving this spread. So I have like blank pages because obviously I want to be able to keep filling it up. Then I also have my favorites of the month so far. So I have this spread. So this is faves of 2021. So this was for January, February, and now March. So spoiler alert. And then this is my reading stats page. I actually didn't finish it because I usually film my wrap up and then I do a whole voiceover part where I tell you guys about my stats. But if you were curious as to how I figure them out, like this is my stats page. So if you ever wanted to know that, that is how. Since we were talking about stats, let's go ahead, go on over to voiceover Jackie and she'll tell you about all the stats for this month. Okay, so this is a crazy month. I have so many books to put in here. So for my combinations, which means that I listened to the book and read the physical copy at the same time, I have Do No Harm, His and Hers, Mother May I, and Replay. I read 2 actual physical books, Every Value Break and Modern Love. And then 3 books that I specifically only listened to the audiobook was All Boys Aren't Blue, Out of My Mind, and Greenlights. Where I got those audiobooks from, I got Greenlights from Scribd. I got Do No Harm from Libro FM, which is kind of like an Audible alternative. So it's a lot better. It's the same price. It's $14.99 per credit per book because you are supporting local bookstores and you can even pick which local bookstore you want to support, which is a great feature. I actually have a discount code that can get you a free credit. If you want to try it out, you can click the link down below in the description box. Then I listened to 4 of the books on Libby, which was His and Hers, Replay, All the Boys Aren't Blue, and Out of My Mind. Libby is my library app, and I am so thankful to be able to listen to so many audiobooks through my library service. And then last but not least, but I got Mother May I as an ARC from NetGalley. NetGalley does have some audiobooks available, and so this was the first audiobook that I actually listened to on NetGalley. As far as where the books came from, Do No Harm, Mother May I, and Every Value Break were sent to me by publishers, which I am so incredibly thankful for. So thank you so much to the publishers that sent those to me. I was gifted His and Hers, Replay, and Modern Love, I think around Christmas and my birthday time. All the Boys Aren't Blue and Out of My Mind, technically I got from the library because they came from the Libby app. And then Greenlights, I technically put as borrowed since I borrowed it from Scribd. Regarding the authors that wrote these books, Replay, Out of My Mind, All Boys Aren't Blue, Modern Love, and Greenlights are all new authors to me. I have read before from Joshilyn Jackson, Alice Feeney, Christina McDonald, and Peter Swanson. And then All Boys Aren't Blue was written by a Black and queer author. So that fits in both the BIPOC and LGBTQ+. As far as genres go, I read 4 thrillers, 3 nonfiction, which 2 of those are memoirs, and Replay I think fit into like more sci-fi because it's like time travel. And then Out of My Mind I just put in a little contemporary spot down at the bottom because I don't really read much middle grade or contemporary and I didn't know where else to put it. So it's just a little spot right there for it. And as far as my star rating, I had 3 5 stars, 3 4 stars, 1 3 star, and 2 2 stars. So super excited. It was a really great reading month. So let's go ahead and get into my reviews. All right, welcome back. So we're gonna go ahead and start out with the books that I read for the Backlist Readathon because I actually didn't read any books until the Backlist Readathon, which was like, I think March 7th through the 13th. That's a readathon that I host, and I asked Allie from Mrs. Dunn Reads and Bree from Falling for Romance to host along with me, and it was super fun. Oh my gosh, I loved it so much. I definitely want to plan a round 2 for this year, possibly around November. We'll see. A Hello, just popping in to say, because I forgot to say in the beginning of this video, that the next Reading Rex by the Bottle live show is happening very soon in just a couple weeks. It's gonna be on April 16th at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here on my channel. And what that means is it's gonna be myself and Gwen and Jessie all hopping on a live show together, and we literally sit and drink wine or alcohol or tea or coffee or whatever you want to drink, and we give you all our recommendations. It is a super fun live show because you actually get to sit and talk with us. You can ask us questions, you can ask us for recommendations. It could be like super specific, it could be very vague, it could be literally anything. It could be, what if you're trying to get into romance? What if you want a stalker thriller book? You know, we will give you those recommendations. And even if you won't make it or you think you're not gonna make it, definitely drop a comment down below of recommendations that you need, because I will be reading them through the live show. So if you drop a comment on this video, and I also will be making a post on Instagram, those are the ones that we will answer first on the live show. And then if you hop on, you can talk to us as well. It usually lasts a couple hours and you can always go back to it. It will always be on my page. So I hope you guys are very excited, because we only do this 4 times a year. So you definitely do not want to miss it. Again, it's on April 16th at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So I will see you guys there. The Backlist Readathon is a readathon dedicated to reading backlist titles, which we say it was going to be 2020 and beforehand. So just no new releases of this year. And we did have certain prompts. So the first book that I read was Replay by Ken Grimwood. And this book I actually read for the prompt of like reading before 2017. This was written in 1987. Like what? Oh, I forgot to show you guys. I keep like my actual like books that I've read and a whole like review in my bullet journal too. So if I'm looking down, that's what I'm looking at. I did give this 4 stars. It was actually pretty good. If you like time travel and like alternate universes, if you like 11/22/63, I think you would be guaranteed to really enjoy this book, because the writing style reminded me a lot of Stephen King. Graham always has to like walk around when I'm filming a video. Like the other time, he's just sleeping somewhere. But no, when I film a video, then you hear his nails clicking all over the floor. Can you sit, can you lay down? Lay down, go in your bed. So this book is about this guy named Jeff. See, there, yep, see, right as soon as I started talking. Nope, here he comes again. This is about this guy named Jeff who dies in 1988, and then he wakes up again in 1963 at the age of 18. He keeps reliving this life over again. So when he gets to 1988, he dies again, and then he wakes up again when he's young again. So it's like it's a replay, obviously, like Groundhog Day type of status, but obviously he's living a significant amount of years. Now, he has tried all different things. He's tried like saving the world. He did the whole JFK thing, like in 11/22/63. He's fallen in love with different people. He's had kids and then lost the kids, because obviously when he dies and comes back again, like those kids don't exist anymore. So he's gone through a lot of stuff. And I did really enjoy this book. The only reason it didn't get a 5-star from me is because of the writing style. I'm just not a fan of like Stephen King, very detailed-esque. I mean, this isn't Stephen King, but like he reminds me of Stephen King's writing, where it's very detailed, just a lot of like storytelling and depth to it. And that's the only thing that lost me on this. But if you love time travel books, if you liked Una Out of Order, if you liked Dark Matter, if you liked The Midnight Library, any of those things, I think that you would really like Replay. Okay, then I read His and Hers by Alice Feeney, which Alice Feeney is one of my favorite authors, but unfortunately this book just wasn't for me. Don't get me wrong, this is like, it can be a good book for people. It just was the wrong book for me, the wrong type of thriller. I ended up giving this book 2 stars, but I have seen plenty of people giving this book 4 and 5 stars that loved it. If you like detective stories, you will like this book. And if you like very shocking endings, if they don't need to be like very believable for you, but you want to be like really thrown off and shocked, then you will also like this book. So this is like a whodunit detective story. Well, it's like part detective, part other POV. It's about this news anchor named Anna, and it's kind of, I don't know, it kind of reminds me a little bit of like an Unreliable Narrator, almost like Girl on the Train, where like she drinks a lot and she gets her job taken away from her because she was like the replacement of this other news anchor lady who had like 2 kids or whatever, and then all of a sudden she just comes back and takes her job back again, and Anna's like, what? So we're reading from her perspective, Anna, who like gets drunk all the time and like doesn't like her life. And then we're reading about the detective Jack, I think his name is, who was like sleeping with this lady named Rachel, who Rachel is the one that ends up being murdered. Well, that happens in the beginning. I'm not giving anything away, but like that, she's the one that's murdered. And so the whole book is figuring out who the murderer is and like why they murdered Rachel and how all of these people are like interconnected. The audiobook, I listened to the audiobook and read the physical book, and the audiobook is really good where like the murderer has like this very distorted voice, so you don't know who it is. And then in the book it has like italicized, I don't know. Anyway, italics for those pages of the murderer. So it is kind of cool because you're reading like about the murderer and like what they're thinking and like feeling, I guess, I don't know. And then at the end, the problem that I had was the fact that I was pretty sure who the murderer was, and then it changed multiple times, but the person that ended up being the murderer was very unbelievable for me. And there was this whole like 3 or 4 page like montage of like how this person was the murderer and like how it fit into the whole storyline, and like they went into this room and they like put this thing here so that way it would throw you off, and then they went and did this over here, and then in this scene like they were over here. And I don't know, it felt like Alice Feeney like just took a person and was like, okay, this is the person that I want to be the murderer. Now I'm going to figure out how this story connects this person, so I'll just write like a 4-page letter at the end and put this person like where they need to go, and then it'll work out. Like that's what it felt like to me, and I'm not a huge fan of endings like that. It just seemed so far-fetched, but I know a lot of people that had no problem with it, so I think it's personal preference. Okay, next up, I read Out of My Mind by Sharon M. Draper. This is a middle grade book. So this is the second middle grade I've ever read as an adult, and I'm glad that I did. I ended up giving this 4 stars. I thought it was so incredibly like just educational, but it is sad, it is happy, like there's all different parts in it, and I really do want to read more middle grade because I enjoy, I don't know, it's hard to explain. It's like, there's like a lightheartedness of middle grade, but then there's still very important, deep topics being talked about. And I really enjoy that. Like, I think that those are definitely really good books to read in like the spring and the summer. But I also want to get more into middle grade, so that way I can recommend like other kids that I know. Like I have tons of like nieces and nephews and cousins and stuff like that, and I would love to be able to recommend them books or like buy them a book for their birthday, you know, something like that. So I do want to get into more middle grade and just read more. But this one is about a little girl who has cerebral palsy and she can't walk or talk, and she gets this like voice box thing that she's able to finally be able to communicate. Like it will print out like words for her if she needs to, or it will also like voice words for her so she can kind of like say what she's feeling and thinking. And since she got this voice box thing, she gets to go to her school and be in, I always forget what it's called. It's like a trivia group type of thing where they like go around and, you know, they're like smart kids and they answer all these questions and like win, you know, things. But anyway, she goes around with her group and they're just like very, very mean to her. Like it just breaks my heart that like there were teachers and adults and kids that would say just very awful things about her to her face, like all of these things. And so that does make me very sad. Like I just felt for Melody a lot, and I just thought she was such a great character. Like I really enjoyed reading about her as a character. I think she was so sweet and cute. So if you want to check out a middle grade, I definitely suggest this one because I learned a lot. It just like made me obviously understand like what it was like coming from her point of view. Like you never think about that. You're always only thinking of like your own point of view. And so it was very educational. I definitely suggest like a little kid reading this, like a, you know, a middle schooler, because they really probably do say things that they don't think about how it's hurting the other person. Okay, the next book that I read is All Boys Aren't Blue by George M. Johnson. And this was a 5-star read for me. one thing, you need to listen to the audiobook. It was absolutely phenomenal. I actually didn't even have the print book. I was doing this for the Own Voices prompt for the Backlist Readathon, and the book that I had started, I just couldn't get into, and I ended up DNFing it like 80 pages in. And so I was looking for another Own Voices book, and All Boys Aren't Blue was available on Libby. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and start this. I started it at work, and oh my gosh, I loved it so much. It was so enthralling. This is a young adult memoir. I never knew there was such a thing, but I think I am a lover of memoirs. Like, I think I'm obsessed now. I am just really, I don't know, there's just something about like listening and reading about another person's life, especially when they go through so much like SHIT, you know? This is about George, who is Black and queer, and he just literally, I mean, he is so honest. Like, at the beginning of the audiobook, he's like, I know that a lot of these topics are dark, and I know this is a young adult book, but he's like, this stuff happened to me when I was a young adult, when I was a teenager, when I was a kid. So he's like, I'm gonna talk about it. Like, this needs to be talked about, because you're letting your children like go through these experiences without knowing how to handle them or know that it's a problem. And so this is such a great book, like, I think for younger kids to listen to in order to know like how to handle these things, how to go through these things. It is an incredibly heartbreaking story, because you just see how much like George had to go through, all the things that he had to deal with, especially just being like in the Black community already and dealing with microaggressions and racism and stuff, even within the Black community, and how they view queer culture, and how he just felt like an outcast through all of that. So I learned a lot about Black culture and queer culture, and so it was very educational. So I think that anyone should be listening to this book or reading this book, but he is such a good narrator. It just felt like he was telling a story, and he went from when he was younger until I think he's 33 now. But yeah, I'm always just shocked at how other people, like how their lives are and how they have to live, but very good one. Definitely recommend. Okay, then I read Modern Love by Daniel Jones. I only gave this 2 stars. This is a collection of essays. I think that's where I got it wrong. This is a collection of essays which I did not love. They're like romance essays from the New York Times, and it really did feel like a poetry collection, and I just did not love that. I'm not a huge fan of poetry. I felt that a lot of the stories kind of went above my head. Like, they didn't feel like love stories to me. They just felt very artistic stories. I don't know how to explain it, but I'm only giving this one 2 stars. I just did not love it. So I would only pick this up if you are a poetry lover. Okay, then we have Greenlights by Matthew McConaughey. I gave this 5 stars. It's kind of crazy. I had so many good books. Like, I had to pick a favorite of the month, but All Boys Aren't Blue, Greenlights, and Every Value Break are all such good books. Like, I read a lot of good books this month. So Greenlights by Matthew McConaughey is so good. Oh my gosh. So I listened to this audiobook as well. I was like in a like middle range where like I didn't want to start books for like a vlog I had, but I was done with the readathon, and so I was just like, oh, you know what? This is available. I'm gonna go ahead and listen to this, especially because I was at work and I was like, I just want something that's like easy listening, you know? And I was like, Matthew McConaughey's voice, that's easy listening. So I started it and I was obsessed. Like, I still am thinking about it, and I'm like, gosh, I want to listen to this audiobook again, because his voice is just so amazing. And oh my gosh, he just tells all of the stories. This is a memoir, by the way. It's like memoir / self-help. So he's like telling the stories about his life and stuff, but then he has like little self-help tips and stuff in there. But the way that he tells stories, he's such a good storyteller. And his laugh, oh my gosh, like you would think that you're not even listening to an audiobook. You would think that you're literally sitting with Matthew McConaughey and he's just having a chat with you, telling you a story, and then you all laugh together. Like, I was straight up laughing. I was at work listening to this and I would just bust out laughing. Everyone probably thought I was crazy, but like, that's how good it really was. So I really enjoyed the whole entire book, like listening to the story of him growing up, things that his mom and dad did, all these things that I didn't know about him. And then I loved when he would tell us things about the movies he was in. Like, you just learn how hard he worked in order to get to some certain places. Like, he doesn't back down. If he wants something, like, he's gonna get it. Like, he has this like confidence about him, and it was just very intriguing to me. But I just loved learning, like, for instance, in The Wolf of Wall Street, like, you know how he does that, yeah, love that part. Oh, okay, Graham. Anyway, I love that part, and that wasn't even like written into the script. Like, that's something that he does to calm himself down. So it's just so interesting to me, like, how movies are created or TV shows, and like what actors do, actresses and all that. And so it was really cool. Like, I loved learning about that. So highly recommend if you need a good audiobook and you like memoirs. Ah, my legs. Ugh. Okay, next up we have Do No Harm by Christina McDonald. I ended up giving this book 3 stars, and I do have a whole reading vlog about it, so I'm not gonna go too much into detail for this one. But this one was pretty interesting with the synopsis. Like, it's about this mom. Her son has cancer and is going to die, and she can't afford the treatment for his cancer, so she has to start selling opioids. But the problem is her husband is a detective and is on the case. So yeah, it was very interesting. Not my favorite thriller ever, but you can definitely hear more when I link the video up here. Same for Every Value Break. I have a whole reading vlog. It's in that same video as Do No Harm, so if you check one out, you can check both of them out. But Every Value Break, chef's kiss, so good. 5 stars. This is a crazy psychological thriller, but definitely do not read the synopsis before you go into it. This needs to go, like, you need to read this without knowing hardly anything. I had an ARC copy and it only had like a 2-sentence like synopsis on the back, and that's the way to do it. Like, go in blind, not knowing anything. It is so good. If you like stalker stories, read it. It's also domestic thriller, just in case you don't like domestic thrillers, but highly, highly recommend. It was my favorite book of the month. It's one of my favorite books of the year. My heart was beating so much. Oh my gosh, I had so much anxiety while I was reading it. Okay, last book of March, I read Mother May I by Joshilyn Jackson, and this book is going to be published on April 6th, so literally just a couple days. I had the physical copy because William and Morrow was kind enough to send me a copy of this, and then I also had the audiobook from NetGalley. So I listened to the audiobook and read the physical copy, and I ended up giving this book 4 stars. So I don't know what it is about this year, but I feel like I'm reading a lot of like mother, son, child kind of books, because I'm also about to read The Perfect Daughter, which is kind of about that too. But this one is about this mom who has 2 teenage girls, also a baby boy, and she has like the perfect life, has everything that she could want, and this old lady like kidnaps her baby, like right from underneath her without even realizing it. And then the old lady is blackmailing this mom, Bree, and is saying like, oh, in order to get your baby back, like, you have to do this, this, and this, and you have to like drug your husband's like best friend or whatever, who's like a partner, they're like in business together. And so it was very thrilling, like reading about the situations that Bree was put in and thinking like, okay, would you do something like this? Like, would you commit a crime in order to get your baby boy back? Like, what would you do for your child? And so if you're a mother, you would probably super love this book, because it just really just shows how much like a mother would do in order to get her child back, or what she would do for her child. I do think that the ending was wrapped up just too tightly for me. It was a little too neat. Everything, you know, was cleaned up or whatever. But this isn't like just a normal domestic thriller. Like, for instance, Every Value Break by Peter Swanson was a very easy reading thriller. Like, it seemed to go so quickly and didn't have like super a lot of depth, whereas this book has so much more depth. Like, there's so many underlying themes. They talk about racism, they talk about like feminism, and like just men in the workplace and how they get away with things. So this one's definitely a more like deep thriller. Like, you learn more from it. There's, you know, more about it than just the topic on the top, you know? So if you like thrillers like that, then you should definitely pick this one up when it releases in just a couple days. Okay, you guys, that's it for this video. Definitely drop a comment down below letting me know what you read in March and what your favorite book was. I would love to know that, but I will see you guys very soon in another video. Bye, everyone.